Nako, sponsored ba tayo?
Ha? Konti na
Sponsored ba yan?
Tunay na Rider Coffee. I'm just doing some taste tests. Lonely tayo today, dude.
Sponsored ba yan?
Oops. Hold on.
Oo nga eh.
Some taste test.
Hindi. Sakto kasi iba, mag-uusapang ano tayo eh. Magkakaroon tayo ng usapang China bikes ngayong araw. Tapos, wala si Bak ngayon. Kasi pumunta siyang Bicol na may dalang China bike.
Nag-test ride siya.
Tapos, 4 na araw na, di pa siya nakakabalik.
I mean, I was hoping that we get Buck on so that he could share his experience. But maybe the fact that he's not on is telling.
Alam mo, ano to eh, walang katapusang debate lagi to, Ibe. Yung mga gawa sa China na produkto. Pero kasi lahat naman ng bagay ngayon gawa na sa China eh, no?
Yeah, that's true. China is the factory of the world.
Mhm. Uy,
But yan, si Buck, hindi talaga aabot tonight, no?
oo. Hindi. Ano pala, no? Last week, madami tayong pinag-usapang mga motorcycle myths. At medyo nag-overextend yata tayo, Iba.
Ang haba. Well, I'm a big fan of Clubhouse. And the beauty of Clubhouse is exactly that. It's very informal and people can hop in and hop out. The challenge of our format, kasi Clubhouse is audio lang eh. The challenge of our format is that people gotta dress up a bit, put on at least a shirt, fix up their lighting. But guys, if you're gonna hop on the show, it's all good if it's just audio, so that we can hear your voice. And we're gonna mirror that experiment again because I think it was pretty good. It just kind of went long, but I think it worked. I think we had a great time talking to Jenna, Mackie, Darwin, and they brought a lot of great insight to the show.
Mhm. Actually, ngayong episode, may mga onting, hindi na parang medyo mga katanungan na halos motorcycle myths din, no? Na medyo ambiguous yung sagot. Na yun yung pag-uusapan natin mamaya.
Yeah. I mean, I hope we give people clarity. Because honestly, China bikes, man, I'm well, we'll see. I'm not gonna jump to the punchline just yet.
Oh, may mga nanonood na Ibo, tinan mo, si Jaime Maralit. Nagko-comment na nga daw. Meron din daw siyang China bike. Euro Rapido 110. 3 years, tumatakbo pa rin ng maayos.
Pero si Jaime nag-upgrade to a KTM. So, may Pinoy bike na rin siya. Pinoy Austria.
Ano yung nga yun, di ba, Iba? But ang mga tawag dito, mga may lahi na Pilipino, di ba? Nagsasucceeds yung mga biroan nila. Yung mga athletes natin, di ba? Mga Miss Universe. Mga half-half. So does that mean na ang KTM na kalahating Austrian, kalahating Pilipino?
You know what? There's something wrong with.
Yo.
So does that mean
why is it playing? Hold on. I'm trying to share the stream to my feed.
Nag-ano ka? Oo. Nag-e-echo ka.
Share.
why is it playing? Hold on.
Hey, what's up, Lenin?
Yun nga eh, tama ka, Jolly, no? Yung Pinoy, parang kung may halo. Pero at the end of the day, if you look at it, we're really a mixing pot of different cultures. We're not homogeneous, right?
Yeah.
Oy, Maki, lagot ka sa tanong mo. Ibo-broadcast namin yon. If you wanna hop into the show and defend yourself, the door is always open.
Yan na. Yon! What's up, what's up? Uy, bago tayo magsimula, kailangan ko lang muna pasalamatan si Maki ang ganda ng t-shirt ko ngayon. Ha? Kita mo?
Uy, ba't ako wala?
Ay, hindi ko na alam yun.
Maki, t-shirt ko. Feeling
Oy,
ko wala sa akin eh.
May kailangan din ako banggitin na sponsor ulit natin, iba, ang walang kamatayang Podmetrics na matagal lang sumusuporta to sa ating podcasts. So, kung podcaster ka or someone na wants to advertise sa isang podcast, pumunta kayo sa website podmetrics.co. So, maraming tayong mga features for both content creators at saka advertisers. So, punta kayo sa website namin, podmetrics.co. For more, Podmetrics is the easiest way to monetize your podcast.
You know what the cool
Ayun.
thing about Podmetrics is, Jolly?
Yo,
Is like for our show, right? We are streaming on YouTube, we are on Facebook, and we've got the podcast on Spotify and all of the podcast platforms. What Podmetrics does is it gives us information on how well we're doing and
Yep.
what is the value of our podcast to potential sponsors.
Yun.
So like yung pagbanggit natin sa Vespa Club, pwede na natin ibigay yung login kay Maki para masingil natin siya.
Yun. At saka, ika nga ni Abby, available daw sa Mad Manila yung t-shirt. May libreng kape pag bumili kayo ng t-shirt.
Uy.
At saka, iba, yung Podmetrics malaking bagay din. Kasi, dyan natin binibase, di ba? Kung ano yung ginagawa natin. Kung saan natin iti-tweak yung ating palabas. So, hindi tayo tumatakbo ng bulag.
Yeah, exactly. So we're kind of lonely today. We're missing Buck Pago.
Yun.
So
Hindi, kasi iba eh. Tunay na rider nga naman si Buck din, di ba? So, pag-uusapan natin ng China bike. Si Buck, anong ginawa? Nag-ride ng China bike, papuntang Bicol, balikan. Hindi siya nakaabot pa ng pabalik.
So hopefully Buck will share more of his adventure next week. But anong bike yung ginamit ni Buck?
Actually, hindi ko alam yung brand. Kasi pa yun eh, top secret pa yan. Pero balita ko, si Ropali Classics daw ang magpapasok eh.
So it's a new brand.
Mga retro bike na gawan China. Pero small
Pero
displacements.
Buck was sharing some pictures. So I guess pwede yun, right?
Yeah, pero hindi ko pa alam kung anong brand.
All right. So if you got we don't want to preempt anything and we don't want to get Buck into trouble. But Buck did share some stories. I don't think he posted about it. Pero medyo hardcore yung biyahe niya. These are retro bikes, sub 400cc displacement.
Hindi basta-bastang retro bikes, iba. Mga mini bikes. Mga monkey bikes. Na babiyahe mo hanggang Bicol and back.
Yun na yaya ako ni Buck eh. Sabi ko, nope, no thank you. Like, if I'm gonna do a Bicol ride, I'm gonna take a 400cc and above motorcycle. And I'm not gonna take one na sub-sub. I'm gonna take one that has nice ergonomic handlebars, that has good suspension.
Yun. May onting comforts naman.
Oo. Yun, gamitin ko yun pang city-city. All right, so our topic for today is ano ang tunay na China bike?
Ayun. Maano
si
yun
Maki
eh.
nandito na. Pasok, Maki Aganon.
Pasok!
Asan si Buck?
Ha?
Bak, puwapet ka.
Ito yung bagong back natin. Gumagawa ko si Buck
Wala eh.
Wait, his
Kumusta?
wife texted me. His wife messaged me, and Buck is somewhere in like Teresita, Rizal. So
Nagpapalaki daw siya ng mga kambing, di ba? Mga kambing.
Oo. Nag-ano siya. Kung may motobirding si Sid, meron si Buck Motokambing.
moto camping. Hindi siya moto camping, moto kambing. All right, so we're gonna talk about
Yun.
ano ang tunay na China bike.
Yun. What
And-
makes a China bike a China bike, di ba?
And you know, it sounds like a simple question, pero medyo malalim yung tanong. So what we're gonna do is we posted earlier last week on our page, and there's some great questions from you guys. So we'll tackle those first. And if you wanna hop in like Mackie, ping us a question that we think is cool, and we'll bring you in. We've got like an international crowd, man. We've got I think Pinsan mo yata from Down Under, mate.
Sino yan?
Ha?
Si
May
Mike.
alam ko eh.
Dennis
Good night.
Alarcon. Hindi halatang
Kamag-
pinsan ko, no?
Ha?
Pinsan ko yan.
What's up, Mike?
Pinsan ko yan.
And then
Ano
we've
yan?
got
Ano yan? Mga hardcore na off-road yan.
Oy. Then they're gonna
Yeah.
like our show with Mark Song, where we're gonna be talking about
Ay,
enduro
nako.
bikes.
Oo. Yun. Oh, meron
Ano-
din tayong viewer from Vienna, Austria. Birthplace of the KTM.
Oh, birthplace of the KTM in the 1950s. So, Roy, sana KTM yung motor mo because that's the right place to buy one, man.
Iba? Simulan natin ang ating usapan dun sa mga mga viewer submitted questions.
Go, go, go.
So, ang una nating tanong galing kay Hombres to, 'di ba? Si Dino
Oo.
Ocampo. Nako, magandang
social
tanong. to.
right.
Ako, magandang tanong yan.
Mm. If
Dino
a
bike.
sige, go.
Go ahead.
Yun. If a significant component is made in China, 'di ba? Is it considered a China bike? O, in example, ang parallel twin ng BMW, 'di ba? So yung mga G650 at saka yung mga early F700 GS gawa daw sa Lonsin. Gawa ng Lonsin yan eh. Pero yung bike inassemble sa Germany. So magandang tanong yan. Does that make a China bike, Iba?
Okay, so in a world, there's no simple answer, but I mean, yes, there is. No, it doesn't. Obviously, because what goes into a motorcycle brand is more than where the different parts are made. If you look at Apple, right? Is Apple a China company? They make some of the best products, the most high-tech, most sought-after luxury tech goods in the world. And they just happen to source a lot of parts from China, but they also source parts from Korea, from Japan, and it just happens to be assembled in China. But obviously, Apple is a US Silicon Valley company. So if you look at any vehicle, right? Any vehicle, I don't even know. Maybe like a Lamborghini wouldn't have parts made in China. Or some little plastic bit doohickey made in China.
Kaya siya mahal.
Yeah. But if you look at most cars, Toyotas, most vehicles, most anything, let's say they're made in Japan, they're made someplace else, they're made in the US, there is a component that is made in China.
Ayun.
Ikaw, Jolly, tingin mo.
Sa tingin ko hindi eh. Sa tingin ko what makes it made in China is kung saan siya inassemble, di ba? Kasi halos lahat naman ng mga products ngayon, iba may ano na eh. Tama, yung parang Apple, di ba? Halo-halo yun eh, na halo-halo na parts kung kani-kanino, di ba? Pero it's still an Apple product. Hindi siya.
A good example is KTM, right?
Ayun, di ba? Ang
KTM is an Austrian brand. And the fact that I think it's like 40% for it to say made in, like local homologation. That means you're sourcing the parts from the region or from the Philippines. And it's assembled here. It's made in the Philippines. Doesn't make it a Philippine bike. It makes it it's still a KTM. It's still an Austrian bike.
Yun.
O, ikaw, Maki, tingin mo.
Tingin ko, dual citizen. Well, kung titignan mo naman kasi ng isang brand, nakikita ko yan na globalization yung yung pag
Globalization.
Ah.
Sakto.
it's called globalization of business. Kasi syempre, one thing that you will consider is yung shipping cost. For example, galing isang produkto sa Europe and then bring it to the Philippines. Grabe yung yung magiging cost niya, 'di ba? Kaya sometimes they opt to partner with some companies so that they can lower some cost. Kasi they are targeting a certain type of market, especially with yung mga lower displacement bikes. For example, BMW. They have to cater a market. And syempre, kailangan nilang ma-meet yung price range. Diba? So somewhere, somehow, they need to find a company that will manage yung market expectation. Kaya they will have to find a company, whether in China or anywhere in Southeast Asia, to co-manufacture a product. So
And
I would say, sige,
it's not just cost, no? It's also supply chain. Kasi lahat ng materials nandun, lahat ng mga engineer nandun. There's efficiencies and quality manufacturing in China. It's not necessarily just cheap stuff. Again, Apple is a great example of that.
Yung iba nung nabanggit mo nga yung supply chain, maganda rin 'yan. Ano yung naalala mo yung kahapon yata yung kinote mo, yung how many bikes are being sold in the US versus sa Europe then dito sa Southeast Asia? Ano yung numbers ulit? Naalala mo
Yes.
yun?
In the US, you're looking at 500,000 motorcycles sold every year. In Europe, it's a little bit more. You're looking at 1.5 million, maybe. You know how many bikes are sold in China? Combustion engine motorcycles.
So China alone, China alone.
China alone, 16 to 18 million motorcycles.
balik tayo sa tanong. Di ba yung question, kung yung parts ay gawa sa China, would you consider it Chinese bike?
And I think we'll answer that question further along the show because we'll go into what defines a brand. And like Dino brought up,
Is Benelli a Chinese bike kasi Chinese ang owner? Is Volvo a Chinese car kasi Chinese ang owner?
and then let's go to the next question.
Patay ka, Jolly.
Patay. Galing kay Maki yung tanong na to.
We'll answer that question after this one. Okay, Maki, saan galing yung tanong na to?
Hindi, si Ibak nagtanong yan. Pinapatanong sa akin ni Ibak. Hindi, yan, yung question ako kasi tatanungin ko yung sarili. Do you think that Chinese bike designs some Chinese bikes are rip-offs or something? So, di ba, huwag na tayong maglokohan. You can see some bikes are straight lifts from an existing manufactured motorcycle.
Yun. Uy, Maki, alam mo yung nangyari
Example, Maki.
Alam mo yung nangyari noong...
Example muna, Maki. Example.
Noong 2011, Maki, sa EICMA.
Dali.
Yo.
Ipitin pa natin si Maki habang nandito siya. Magbigay siya ng example.
Oo nga, anong example?
Ang dami eh. Di ko alam. Before nagkaroon ng nagkaroon ng issue yan before, I think with Honda Philippines. Tapos nagkaroon ng copy. If I'm correct, it's the Honda Wave or something. And nagkakasuhan pa yan eh.
Locally.
Oo, dumating sa point in time that product from a Chinese company was put to stop. na, oy, wag kayong gagawa kasi kung hindi, demanda namin kayo. Diba? Hindi mo babangkain ng malaking kumpanya if you trigger
Tsaka,
them. Diba? You don't start a war
Yun.
with someone who has resources.
Kaya
Diba?
kaibaon,
Pero
Pero ano yun ibig sabihin na-threaten. Na-threaten yung mga big brands.
Maybe.
Oh,
I think you also want to protect your IP, right? So that you don't set precedent for another group to do it. But so obviously the answer is yes. There are guys who copy existing motorcycles.
Iba sample.
Oo nga, ibag. Example.
May example tayo. We were chatting about this.
Hindi. Wait, sagutin ko lang yung yung pinsan ko. Tinanong niya kasi, yung mga bikes daw ba ng Hayosung, Chinese daw ba yun? China bike ba yun? Wala kasi yung Hayosung masyado sa Pilipinas eh. Oo, ang Hayosung Korean yan.
Korean. It's a Korean brand and wala pang manufacturer dito na gusto mo mag-commit.
Magpasok.
Kung mayroong may gusto magpasok, edi it's welcome, di ba? Marami namang
panahon na ng ngayon, panahon na ng mga affordable bikes ngayon.
Lalo
na
na
yung panahon.
Ginagamit ni Buck ngayon.
Man, yun yung bike hindi pa natin pwede baka mayari si Buck pero yun yung talagang garapalang ginopya talaga. Pero ito nung 2011 kasi Maki, speaking of mga kopya na bikes, nung 2011 sa EICMA, nagka-raid.
Tapos?
Ni-raid. Tapos, may ba tayo? Pwede ba i-pull out yung mga picture? So, yung mga Guardia de Finanza, ni-raid yung EICMA. Tapos, diretso sila pumunta sa mga China brand.
Grabe.
Ng mga motor. Tapos, ginawa, parang sa mga alam mo yung pag ni-raid yung mga spa, yung nagtatakip ng towel sa mukha yung mga tao. Tinakpan yung mga motor, tapos tinulak palabas. Kinonfiscate.
Grabe, no? Wow.
So,
hindi ko alam yan, pare.
Itong mga nakatakip daw ng motor, ano daw yan? Talagang rectang clone ng Piaggio MP3.
Wow.
Kinopya ng Chinese. Tapos, ang Hayosung din na brand na booth ni Raid, kinonfiscate din yung mga bike nila. Wow. Check natin yung motor na side by side, yung picture na side by side. Yung blue yan, no? Yung Hayosung yung kaliwa, yung Vespa yung sa kanan.
Okay.
So parang yun nga, parang
ito yung mga fine lines. Pwede kasing gawing some sort of influence ang isang design. Kasi me as a designer, meron akong parang sometimes I gather some photos of tinatawag na peg. So sige, peg natin yan. 'Di ba? Pero it will come to a point na hanggang saan yung magiging reference. 'Di ba? So, yun, foul yun. Pagka kunyari talagang straight lift, tapos binibenta mo, and then you're claiming that you're selling this to your own brand. So, parang di ba? Parang sayang naman yung ininvest ng isang kumpanya sa research and development, design, study, di ba? Tapos, and then you lift a copy. Di ba? Parang, di ba? Foul yun.
Yep. Pero kasi yun din yung point din ng Chinese brands is that they are affordable So to cut costs, binabypass sila yung R&D by copying designs, existing designs. Tas 'di ba, ang napapansin ko rin lately din nakokopya na nila yung mga pasuna yung copyright. Like yung mga luma na talaga, yung mga lumang designs na 'di ba? Nakukuha na nila.
I see.
Wait, Dino, do you want to hop in the show? Dino sent a link. Bianca, I don't know if you can pull that link up and show it.
Silipin ko, sir. Ano ba?
Dino Ocampo.
G310GS clone. Grabe.
Loading.
Tagal ng internet. Uy, yun. Nauna pa siya. Bagal na internet.
Naghang bigla ako.
Wow, GS na GS.
Di mo pagkakamalan.
Hindi ba yung tsura?
Okay, so yung Hyungsung, ano yung Hyungsung ba yun kanina? Ako, defendable
Hyosung,
yung
Hyosung,
position niya kasi hindi siya Xerox, Hyosung.
Oh,
Hindi siya Xerox. Ito pare, kopyang-kopya.
Grabe, men.
Hindi naman iba.
Parang-
Pinalitan nila yung isang letter, naging GY.
Cyclone GY. Motorrad.
Grabe naman yun.
Alright. So,
Makikita mo yung design. Sige. Okay na yun.
so obviously there are copies. There are China brands that straight up copy existing motorcycles, and they've been called out. Now let's look at.
Yeah.
But I think it's the Hyosung is a
Hyosung.
Hyosung
In Korea.
is a unique case because they're obviously two different design bikes. I mean, you're right,
Mhm.
Mackie. There was inspiration pulled from it. Pero what about like the Rusi na mukhang Ducati, the mini bike? I mean,
Yung
I don't
Mojo?
think that's a copy. I don't think that's a copy. That's definitely a different bike. It's like a Grom, diba? Pero it
Hindi,
looks like a
yung
Ducati.
yung Mojo.
Oh,
Mm.
Sige.
Hmm.
Side by side comparison. Well, Ducati well known with the trellis. And syempre yung kopya.
Ako din sabihin ko kopya
ang
yun,
layo
diba?
ng displacement, diba?
Oo, pero kahit
Anyway.
sabihin mong malayo yung displacement, yung itsura niya eh.
So there is an IP when it comes to the look of the bike, but and I guess even if you buy a tiny model, right, like a tiny little toy, they still make paalam to brand owner if they can use that design. So
Tama.
yeah, so kopya. All right, so let's look at the next question, Bianca.
Ayun. Galing kay ano to? Galing kay Derek Bing Basit.
Direct
So,
Bing.
ang question ni
What's up?
Derek Bing, mahabang tanong to. The quote-unquote old brands such as Benelli, which was acquired by China in 2005, is there still a connection from the country it was born from? Can I call a Benelli European as I would call the present-day Benelli of today? Pero ito medyo ito lang yung sa tingin ko kasi maraming mga Chinese brands nga may kanya-kanya silang mga diskarte kung paano pinapatakbo ang kanilang business model. Madalas ko nakikita ngayon since yung noong 1980s nagkaroon tayo ng renaissance ng motorsiklo kung saan lumabas yung mga Japanese. Tapos medyo maraming lumubog na European brands. Lately, since nauuso nga retro, ginagawa nitong mga Chinese na companies, binibili yung rights doon sa mga brands para magamit nila yung tatak na yun. So, one such brand na nalugi noon na na-acquire ng China is yung Benelli. So, itong Benelli talaga, as in, 19th of the century, meron ng Benelli motorcycles. Nananalo sila sa MotoGP noong mga 30s and 40s. Talagang ganun sila kabatikan pagdating sa motorsiklo. Ayun na nga, paano yan? Nalugi na sila, binili ng China. Are their products Chinese or European?
All right, so the first time I saw Benelli was about a year and a half ago in Liwu, China. That's the first time I ever saw Benelli, and I was like, "What is this bike? It looks pretty cool, right?" Was it Liwu? Yiwu. What is it, Grace? Yiwu. Yeah, that's the
Yiwu.
first time I saw it sa parang isang Tiangge nakapark with other motorcycles. Oh, yun, Direct Bing is there, so we're answering his question. So it goes into, and we will tackle this later, what makes a brand, right? What makes a global brand a global brand? What makes an Italian brand an Italian brand?
Ito, iba. Yung Benelli kasi, they still have an office sa Italy. So, their designers and their CEO, Italiano pa rin yung mga yan. Pero, Chinese-owned sila. So, parang it
Tingin ko,
makes the distinction more hard.
So, Okay. And we'll go into this later, but it really depends on the kind of investment and partnership. MV Agusta is a great example of that, wherein it's a lot of Chinese money in that company, but you can't argue that it's a China brand because the bikes are made in Italy. It's, maybe there's new management, but it's still a very strong Italian brand. So that is obviously not a Chinese bike. With Benelli, though, the lines get a little blurred, right? Simply because the bikes, majority of the bikes parts, it's 100% China. They may be assembled outside of China. I don't know.
Alam ko,
But-
ang Benelli may local assembly sila.
But that's also like the semi knockdown, right? The fact that KTMs are put together here doesn't make it a Philippine brand. It's still an Austrian brand. When you import cars from China, you don't import them buo, right? Yung SKD yung tawag doon, yung semi knockdown. It's still a Suzuki that's assembled in the Philippines. It's still a Japanese brand. So the question
Correct.
really goes into ano yung office nila, what kind of presence they have in Italy. Or is it really just
Baka 10 lang opisina nila ganun. 10 lang yung tao sa
baka may
opisina.
call center lang sila doon, may isang Italiano. Hindi natin masabi. Right? But the other thing that goes into making a China brand, and I'm gonna jump ahead, is the fact yung mindset ng company. If
Correct.
that, yung China brand, parang Lazada o Shopee, gusto nila magbenta ng isang pranela lang sa'yo, and panalo na sila, uy, nakabenta akong isang pranela. Or is their mindset to say, I will sell you a whole cleaning ecosystem and you will be a return customer for the next 5-10 years because you love our products, and they're investing in keeping you as a happy customer. That differentiates the the brand. So I think Benelli, whose mindset is building a brand that will have more than one, like you're not going to just buy one Benelli, like you want to buy another one in the future. They're building it. The mindset is an evolved China brand, right? So it has a global mindset. Yun.
Actually, gusto ko rin yung maganda yung sabi ni Jenna, pero yung sa tingin niya, she doesn't think that Benelli is Italian anymore. Pero it's a good move for Benelli. It's better for the brand. Kasi nga naman, defunct na yung brand na yun eh. Tapos dahil nga sa Chinese funding, nabuhay siya. At saka ito, sabi nga ni...
yung pinaka popular na yun eh. Business trade deals yan eh. Hindi lang sa motorcycles, but also with other industries. Diba? So, if one company is like hindi na kumikita sa mother country, it's for example Italy, then they'll try to find some resource, some investors from other countries, and then they will negotiate on kung hanggang saan yung scope and limitation of managing the brand. Kasi pwedeng yun nga sabi ng iba kanina, will sell you rights to manufacture only, but in terms of branding and marketing, kami ang gagalaw diyan, di ba? Right? Sometimes up to what extent, di ba? Some brands will, sige, bilhin niya yung buong kumpanya, di ba? Parang ito yung pangalan. Yun na yan, di ba? Tapos ito yung brand, it sounds Italian or it's Italian company. And then from now on, the direction of that brand, it's up to you, di ba? So you sold or you bought the rights already for that brand, and that makes it already, para sa akin, completely Chinese brand na siya, di ba? Kasi makikita mo in terms of marketing or branding, alam mo pag Italian alam mo pag Japanese, merong may background, may history, di ba? Pero when the direction goes out from that background, then you can say that meron ng changes. And then
Parang
syempre
pag sinira na nila yung kanilang sinira na nila yung kanilang heritage,
well,
kanilang
yung
pedigree. Ah.
well, yung heritage pwede mo pa rin naman i-continue to like some models, di ba? Pero kung ikaw ay isang matalinong customer, you will dig deep from kunyari, saan ba nag-derive ang isang produkto? For example, sa Triumph, yung Bonnevilles nila right now, di ba? Still the same bike, and then may modern upgrades. So, di ba? Yun. So I think for a brand to become to be called Chinese or what, it depends on up to what extent the company was sold to and marketed. Yun yung sa akin.
Speaking of marketing,
Dino has a good point. And Dino, if you want to hop in. Direct Bing, Jenna, Bianca, send these guys the link. So Dino has a good point. 3 factors talaga: ownership, design, engineering, and or assembly can be China based. Ano ang minimum to consider a Chinese bike? I think you're missing there. Okay, so now is a good time to segue into what makes a brand, right? What makes a brand a global brand,
ayun.
and what makes
Meron
a
tayong
Chinese bike?
Ilabas nyo na
Chinese
yung
bike.
inyong mga notepads dahil may lecture tayo ngayon. What makes a motorcycle brand? Yung 4, ano ba ito, Iba? The 4 pillars of what makes
The 4 pillars of motorcycle brands. Actually 5, but and this is something we just came up with the other night, no? And obviously we've thrown this word around a lot: pedigree, the history of the bike. Now, most motorcycles, global brands, have a pedigree that is rooted in either war, having a racing heritage, but it's basically a couple of guys in a garage who were making farm tools who said, let's put an engine on a bicycle. And then from there, they're like, wow, this is a lot of fun. Let's make more than farm tools. Let's make something that can race. Something that is more for leisure and not for function. All of the bike brands, ganon yung mindset nila.
May parang ganun, like, pag napanood mo yung movie, di ba, nagkaroon ng documentary about the history of Harley Davidson. So literally mga tropa sila na gumagawa ng motorcycles na pang leisure. Whereas yung si Honda, they first made bikes for the masses, pang deliver ng tokwa. Tapos yung mga Vespa, mga people mover yun na made from surplus aircraft parts. Pero napapansin ko ng trend lang lahat. Kahit anong bagay, lagyan mo ng makina, lagyan mo ng gulong, ikakarera ng tao yan . So halos lahat ng brands napunta talaga sa racing.
Racing heritage.
Tama.
Now, if you look at the pedigree of Chinese brands, it's very different. No, they all start from a function perspective, a business to business perspective, a people mover, something that is for delivering, that is something that is used for the farm. Wala silang pedigree when it comes to that history, that lineage that these other brands have. So that's one point against it. Like, if it doesn't have that pedigree, then, it's a China brand.
Iba, sabihin mong
Yet.
Mga 6 or 5 decades ago, ganyan na ganyan ang Honda.
Exactly. Yeah. Honda is the
Yamaha.
China. Honda, at the Japan is the China 50 years ago.
Kasi,
right?
Ang mga motorsiklo naman dati, di ba? Triumph, di ba? BSA, yung mga Norton, yung mga Honda, technology-wise, they can't compete with those guys. Pero they make a lot of bikes targeted to the masses. Which is...
Oy, may dalawang guest tayo. May dalawang guest tayo. This is hot stuff, right? So, exciting.
Yun.
if you guys are on Clubhouse, this is basically like this experiment we're running. We're in. We noticed a lot of the fun we get from the show is talking to you guys in chat, but we figured let's let you guys be in the show. So that's the logic. All right, so we're talking now. Okay, what was the question? Heritage and pedigree.
Yeah.
That is
So
what
yung nga,
makes-
yung ang
that
Japanese
differentiates a
bikes,
global brand
yun. So
from
yung
a
mga,
China bike.
so yun nga, parang yung mga Japanese bikes, ang Japanese brands like 6 decades ago, sila in China. 'Di ba? Ang kwento ni Yamaha at ni Kawasaki, 'di ba? Kawasaki nag-pirate ng BSA, tas yun yung naging Meguro na naging Kawasaki, tas yung Yamaha nag-pirate ng Triumph Engineer na yun yung naging XS, 'di ba? So nagkaroon sila ng ganun klaseng style na
Telenovela.
they're more on parang quantity and affordability for the masses over yung leisure. Hindi sila leisure oriented like the other brands.
Oh, Jenna's here too. Let Jenna in.
Oh, yeah. Ang daming emotionally involved kaya biglang
Oh,
pumasok.
oh, like you guys are wrong. You guys are stupid.
Oo nga eh. Mainit
No,
pa eh.
yeah,
Mainit.
you're on the right track. It's funny because I just edited like someone's academic paper on Chinese cars and how they're struggling to find their own identity in the motoring world, and it's really close to what you guys are saying right now, especially what Jolly is saying about they.
Jenna may bias talaga towards Jolly. Hindi ko alam bakit. Parang feeling ni Jenna, sobrang bobo ako.
No,
Hindi naman iba.
no, he's right in the way that one of the things they need to do is to make a people's car, in this case, a people's bike, just like what the Honda Cub was.
Or the Vespa was.
Yeah, the issue with China is that there are so many darn players vying for that people's bike.
Yun yung ano, di ba, iba? Sabi mo nga, sa US, they sell 500,000 motorcycles. Whereas in China, they're selling 12 million?
16 to 18 million motorcycles
16 to
a year.
18 millions. And that's a lot of players.
And they're all, and that's not counting electric vehicles. They're selling 10 million electric vehicles a year. And
Shit.
majority of those bikes are practical, functional people's bikes, like Jenna was saying. India is actually a bigger player. They're selling like 20 million combustion motorcycles a year.
I think
So
that
wala pa yung pedigree na yan that we're talking about. That romantic history when it comes
that
to
romantic history, I see that happening with China in the electric sphere.
because the world is the industry when it comes to electric is blue ocean. There is no leading player when it comes to, I mean, aside from Tesla, when it comes to electric bikes.
You know,
Hey.
they already are. If you think about it, just the volume of sales and you know, they're already ahead of everyone. Everyone else,
they are.
like when it comes to racing heritage and distinct brand identity and riding philosophy, they're decades and decades behind. It's only in the electric industry where they're so ahead. Not necessarily by the technology, but by exposure and sales.
All right. So, Direct Bing, you're the one who brought this highly controversial question up. So, what do you think? Benelli, is it a China brand or is it still a European brand?
No, when I saw the question when you guys posted it, basically it was just Benelli. But if you're gonna look at something deeper into that, if you're gonna be like you went to that direction already of global. Good example is Vespa. A good example is Royal Enfield. Okay, so these are brands that were there before. Okay, and then India, they actually got. No, I don't want to say they got the short end of the stick here, but they took advantage of it. Until now, the way you look at the Royal Enfield, it's like as if it was in the 1940s, right? Come on,
Time machine.
Oh, exactly. They got stuck, but
Except for the
it
new
came
ones.
to a
The
point
new
where-
ones are beautiful.
Exactly. No, I was gonna go there because after a while, they got stuck. At the same time, it's supposed to be a disadvantage, but people went into the heritage look. Okay, so it became popular. So the RE group here, they boomed, and then they came out with the two new brands with tech, and I was like, wow,
Yep.
sumabay sila, and I've seen it. It's very impressive. I have a couple of friends who they own it, and when you look at it, pare, sasabay sila. Sasabay sila sa sura
Well, ako
forma.
na-test ride ko yun yung mga bagong RE. Ganda. Ang layo.
Diba?
Mhm.
Those are
Pero ano,
Wow.
Mhm. Yung
those are
Go.
by hired ex-Triumph engineers coupled with a race platform developer based in the UK.
yun, in-outsource si Harris Harris Performance.
Paris, yeah.
Pero ang galing nung nangyari dyan kasi they were making that bike, yung Bullet, for like
Mhm.
more than 5 decades. Hindi lang.
Yes.
8 decades na ginagawa yung Bullet. So, di ba, sa tingin ko parang binebenta lang nila yon at a really, really low cost. Wala silang R&D at all. So, parang nag-iipon lang sila. So, parang eventually in the
And now
future,
we're spending.
may pang R&D, may pang R&D na tayo.
Okay, so
Oh,
Dino,
eventually, kumita na tayo. Sabay naman
Wait,
tayo.
Dino, what-
So, again,
Dino.
Yeah.
Sorry, let's hear Dino's thoughts on Benelli.
Oh,
Is
Dino.
it a China bike
I
or
guess,
is it a global brand?
I guess, sige, pwedeng specifically to Benelli, but to bikes in general. Like,
All right.
the fact that, I mean, we all ride motorcycles. We all consider motorcycles to have soul, I guess, for lack of a better word. So parang what aspect of a motorcycle is yung pinaka-significant na nagde-define ng soul ng motorcycle? Para sa akin, ownership is actually, and manufacturing is relatively low. It's your example, Iba. Like, just because an iPhone is manufactured in China doesn't make it a Chinese phone.
Yeah.
Diba? And just because Volvo is owned by Chinese doesn't make it a Chinese car. So para sa akin, like the soul of a motorcycle is determined by parang sino ba yung who designed it, who engineered it, where was it built for? Yeah. So it's parang Chinese bike, ang daming definition parang, di ba, pwedeng parang and you can always disagree. Parang if ownership makes a Chinese bike, parang very very black and white yan But soul is a bit harder to define.
Yeah.
Di
That's
ba?
I
deeper.
think the soul of a motorcycle, when it comes to connection with a brand, is at the heart, and the heart of a motorcycle is the engine. And if you look at all of the brands, all their engines, their behaviors, the way they are built, the way they're arranged, the timing of everything, each brand is known for their engines. The chassis you can play around with, but you know what I mean?
Yep. I hear you. The big global brands all have a unique design and feel and sound to their engines.
Yeah. Even if they make the same thing, like if two brands make a parallel twin, you're still going to be able to go like, this is the Yamaha style parallel twin. This is the Triumph one. You know?
Okay, so now we've talked about the pedigree and the history of the bike. The other thing that makes a bike brand that differentiates the so-called China brand is marketing, right? Now, going back to the stat that we keep on repeating, majority of those China bikes that 16 million sold in China don't care about any other country except for China. Busog na busog sila when it comes to China. Which is why they don't change their brands, they don't change their names. It's like Zhong, because they don't care about our market.
Yeah.
Pero parang may mga may mga ganong brands. Like, ang marketing, may mga ibang ganong companies na yung parang model nila, like, bigyan ko na example, si Bristol at saka si Motorstar. Local manufacture, pero yung bike silang binebenta are parang already ready-made products na eh. Na dun sa
Those are the
China
OEMs.
available eh.
It's like Cherry Mobile, diba? Those phones aren't made in the
OEM,
Philippines.
yeah.
They just pick
Rebranding.
something.
So parang doon naka-base yung marketing nila na parang outsourced yung marketing nila.
B2B.
No,
In
but
a way.
yeah, but that's a different. That's you're basically a trader. But Dino is our marketing expert here.
What?
Rising vet. He's disrupted the digital space. So let's hear what Dino thinks about branding and marketing and how that differentiates the motorcycle. The company.
Shit. Balikan na lang natin yung Benelli para mas madali.
Okay, so going back to what we were talking about earlier. If you're buying something from a shop in Lazada that isn't in Laz Mall, it's in Laz Market, and it's a wrench. All that person wants is to sell you one wrench and they're happy. They don't care if you come back and you buy another wrench. That goes to like the branding and the marketing. BMW, for example, I have owned like 5 or 6 BMWs, and I just keep on coming back because it goes to the brand and the marketing, right? Long Way Around launched the entire adventure bike industry. BMW captured the bulk of it, but all of the other brands have reaped the rewards. You meet the nicest people on a Honda. Was a US campaign that sold 40 million Cubs.
At
The
saka
fact
ano
that
ang Cubs yan yung lolo ng Underbone. Yan yung ano ngayon. Yan yung masa bike.
So
Oo.
the fact that these brands think about marketing, thought about developing their brand, differentiates them from the quote unquote China brands who just care about selling one bike. BMW cares about selling me 5 bikes, right? Honda cares about selling me 10 bikes and buy it for my company, buy it for my team. You know what I mean? So going back to that, Dino, what are your thoughts?
So Iba, diba, you talked about that. So is your question, are Chinese brands actual brands or are they just Chinese bikes? Yan ba yung ano? Kasi syempre, di ba, ang daming topic eh. Parang in my head, parang there is no Chinese brand yet. There are only Chinese companies that manufacture motorcycles.
Yeah.
Diba?
Yeah.
Okay, so I
Right.
beg to differ. I think that Benelli is trying to be that brand for emerging markets. They're trying to be that entry-level Italian Chinese brand. I think
Nagkaroon
CF
iba,
Moto.
medyo muddy yung Benelli kasi nga
Oo nga eh.
bumili
Okay,
sila ng
let's talk
brand
about
eh.
CF Moto then. CF
Yun.
Moto, I think, is a great brand.
Mm,
They're unashamedly made in China. They have
Correct.
partnered with companies like KTM, and they've actually invested in this beautiful showroom, which I think is the showroom of the future, in Caloocan, where you have electric
Chrome lahat.
vehicles, you have
Ah.
MV Agustas, and you know what I mean? So, like, I think Benelli is one of the, CF Moto is one of those Chinese brands that are more than a Chinese motorcycle.
Yeah.
Okay.
Actually, I would agree kasi ano sila eh, parang ano siya, it's a Chinese brand, pero instead like yung ginagawa nga nila, imbis na parang OEM manufacturer lang sila, talagang brand and product talaga sila eh. Tapos medyo upscale market sila eh, hindi lang parang leisure bike siya eh, yung mga products niya eh.
Yeah, hindi siya pang tricycle, di ba?
Oo.
I guess my question though, pwedeng CF Moto, pwedeng ibang brand. Like, if I were to ask you, kung tao yung CF Moto, would you be able to describe ano yung personality niya, ano yung value niya, what does it stand for?
Not yet.
You can do that. Yeah. Ayan.
Mm,
Like you can do that for
Bago pa
Ducati, you can do that for KTM, you can do that for BMW. Parang, and maybe it's unfair. Kasi sabi nga ni Jolly, bago pa siya eh. But is it on its way to defining itself? Diba?
Sobrang,
You know what?
sobrang
If
existential
I
ng
can
tanong
answer
sa'yo. Parang,
that.
does this motorcycle have a soul?
Ano,
You guys are so pretentious.
According to Kierkegaard.
They're selling themselves right now. They're selling
Wait, sorry, no.
themselves based on how well they can keep up with what's existing. They don't have their own thing yet, but it's part, the issue when I said like the engine is the heart of the motorcycle and it actually gives the soul. What's their identity if they keep on partnering with other people like KTM, CF Moto? CF Moto is going to start manufacturing the parallel twins of KTM, and then they're going to start sharing technology, and then how is it going to differ from KT? So it's like, and then a lot of them are copying Honda engine. So where's the heart in that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Ako, I agree with that. Then,
The
engine is one of the most defining part for a brand. Kasi each company, di ba, they're spending a lot of R&D, development, engineering for an engine. And then you, as a rider, you have that certain type of feeling that you can say that it's Italian or it's Japanese. Then you can say that it's authentically made by a certain company. Now, yung idea na China bike, kasi historically sa Pilipinas, kailan lang naman pumasok ang mga Chinese brands or Chinese bikes, especially big bikes. So before, nagkaroon ng stigma ang Chinese bike na pang tricycle or pang commute, di ba? Now, we're talking about a different China bike, di ba? Nagsisimula na siyang mag-penetrate sa
leisure.
market. Oo, leisure segment na, di ba? So, ngayon, nagkakaroon na ng different connotation on what is a China bike at present, di ba? Perfect example is, kaya sabi kanina, CF Moto. They don't feel ashamed that they're a Chinese brand, but they're spending their resources by partnering with ISCA in terms of design, and they spend a lot on marketing on how they create their own identity kung paano sila magko-compete sa market. So if you say that, let's say, CF Moto is a China bike, but they've partnered with Kiska, who also works with the design of KTM. So nagkakaroon na ng correlation.
Ito pa lang CF Moto?
Yeah. Kiska siya.
Wow.
Na-research ko siya dati. Nasakyan ko na rin yung bike. And
explain ko lang, Maki, yung Kiska kasi designing firm yan eh.
Yeah.
Nasikat ngayon. Sila atag, ano bang ginagawa nila ngayon? KTM, mga KTM, di ba? Sila yung designer.
Yes. KTM, some Adidas, and a lot of global brands. So, as you can see, yun nga, CF Moto is investing a lot in terms of design. Now, you're having a different definition of what a China bike is right now. So, ang difference lang na nakikita ko sa kanya with CF Moto and Benelli. Benelli started out as an Italian company and nagkaroon ng ownership. So, there's I would say that Benelli is an Italian bike as a brand. But in terms of ownership and then marketing direction, for me, nag-iba na siya. Diba? So, yun yung nakikita kong difference. Nag-iba na siya. Yun.
Saan based yung yung research, R&D and design and engineering and all that? Saan yung sa Benelli, saan siya based? Sa Italy pa rin ba?
Italian yung mga designers nila.
Okay.
Pero kasi pagdating sa design parang like example, yung 1980s, yung Suzuki Katana. German na nag-design ng bike na yun eh. Pero nung lumabas yung bike niya, Japanese pa rin yun.
That's true. That's a good point. Anyway, so going back, actually, let's float up Carlos' comment, Bianca.
Saan dyan?
Carlos saying that Iba, maybe you can ask a native speaking, I guess somebody from China, if they know the brand story. Because you know what? Yeah, because we don't matter as much. Again, 16 million bikes sold in China, 2 million sold in the Philippines. We're not that big of a. No, maybe there is an interesting brand story. They just haven't translated it yet. Or it won't resonate with
Sa
us.
tingin ko nga may mga ganyang kwento nga yan. Kasi alam mo yung totalon lang ako sa kotse, yung Geely, 'di ba? Geely owns Volvo ngayon, 'di ba? Lately, sila yung sa YouTube, yung Donut Media, gumagawa sila ng mga parang mini documentaries tungkol sa mga history ng bikes and cars. Gumawa sila ng documentary about yung Geely na brand. Ang ganda ng kwento. Parang 'di ba, as you would expect from a China, parang sumulpot lang yan dyan eh. Parang pinakita.
Dude,
Parang mga tao din yan. May history din sila.
World Touring Car Championship. Fuck.
Yun, di ba?
Cyan Racing.
Up, censored.
Oh, sorry. Dude, their first racing heritage win, man. Geely.
Mm-hmm.
And going to that, you know Baidu, which is one of the biggest EV vehicle manufacturers in the world, right? They started making batteries for Nokia phones.
Pero di ba ang Nokia China on na rin?
So anyway, okay, let's move on to the next thing, which is service and quality control.
Yan ang ano. Doon tayo nagkakatalo.
So again, it goes to lifetime customer value, right? I see, Jolly, you're wearing a Vespa shirt. I mean, Direct Bing, you're wearing a Vespa shirt. It's still Vespa. So you're proud to wear these things because of the quality it exudes, right? And that also goes to pedigree and marketing. You guys are basically billboards for the Vespa. Now, when you talk about quality and reliability and service, that's also important.
Alam mo, service talaga ang, for me, for a consumer, service talaga yung malaking deciding factor. Kasi kung yung motorsiklo mo maganda naman, pero wala naman kwenta yung service dito, ano siya? Wala rin, di ba?
I think
Parang
Bristol
with
is a great example of
with that said,
awesome
kasi
service.
like may mga masasabi ako, may mga ibang Chinese brands or mga hindi naman premium na brands, maganda pa yung experience ko sa service kaysa sa mga luxury brands
Yep.
Yeah,
And I
like
think Bristol is one of them. Like si Boylet and one of my partners, Emil, they both have Bristols. They're super happy with the service. Like it's home service. It's the warranties are ridiculous. As opposed to, sadly, some of the premium brands, the luxury brands, ikaw pang humahabol, ikaw pang pumipila to get your multi-million bike, peso bike service.
Although, since you gave a specific example of Bristol, yung tanong ko, is Bristol a Chinese bike or a Chinese brand?
According to Boylet, who I do not want to contradict in any platform, because matagal talaga na usapan yon, it goes for days. It is. And he's an owner of a Bristol bike.
Right.
But arguably, going to what Jenna was saying, the soul of that bike is
Taiwanese.
Taiwan.
And Taiwan, I'm not even going to go into the Taiwan thing because Taiwan makes some of the best bikes in the world. They are not Chinese bikes.
Oh my
Period.
Yeah, exactly. So, so since I guess I am not officially a part of Tunay na Rider, my opinion does not represent the owners or the show organizers. Yeah, I don't consider Bristol Chinese because I don't consider Taiwan China.
Just like a
Next.
Kimco. Kimcos are the best scooters around, right?
Yeah.
And from a tech standpoint, they rock. And we'll go into that next, actually.
Yeah.
So, but
Like-
a lot of these
Mhm.
Chinese brands, well, okay, a lot of these brands that are made in China, they have really good service and great warranty.
Mm. Mm.
All right, Gino
Oy,
Moto.
si Gino,
I'll
my
never
old
live this
POS
down.
bike is still awesome.
So Gino Rufino's bike is a Motostar Cafe 400, right? And I, in jest, called it a piece of beep motorcycle. But in all of my rides with him on that bike, I have broke down or something has gone wrong with my European motorcycle, and his gets home without any issues. So Gino, on air in front of all of these people, I apologize, and I think your Motostar, it was a great freaking motorcycle.
Uy, Cafe 400 kasi wala nga pala si Bak dito. Ni-ride niya yung Cafe 400 dun sa Ride for Valor 2. Tapos nag-first place siya.
Yun.
Gamit Cafe 400. Natalo niya yung mga GS.
But Motostar, definitely China bike. Definitely. Unapologetically a China bike.
Pero yun naman yung ano eh. Yan yung aim naman talaga ng China bike iba eh. It's affordability eh. Yung bang for the buck eh. Diyan naman sila nagsimula talaga eh.
I think that's their selling point and their big national identity really right now.
The challenge lang with is resale value, right?
Oh, wala na talaga.
Wala.
Wala talaga.
Wala talaga.
Anyway.
All right, so going back,
Basta.
finally, let's the last two, quality. I bought a 15,000 peso 100cc CPI Tyke. I love that thing. It is one of the most reliable engines because it's a copy of a Japanese engine. Sometimes things come off, but I just have to screw it back on. But it's gonna get me home.
Alam mo, dati tumirik yung scooter ko. So nag-SOS ako kay Iba. Parang, Iba, shit, tumirik yung bike ko. I need to get home. So wala akong magamit na bike. Alam mo, mag-GS ako, papasok ng Makati, di ba? So si Iba, gamitin mo yung Tyke. Una parang, joke ba yan? Sige, pera ng Tyke. So, ginawa ko, fuel tank ko yung Tyke. Tapos pumunta ako Makati, so umuwi ako. Tapos pag uwi ko, nagpagas ako dun sa, kung saan nagpagas dati. So, kaya patap up lang ulit. Men, balikan Makati, 40 pesos yung gas na ginamit ko. Pero ang bagal ko. Ang bagal ko talaga nun. Pero ang nakakatawa, nung nag-traffic dun sa Makati Avenue, yung bike ko sobrang gaang, binuhot ko sa bangketa. Tapos nakan ko dun. Nabilaban ko lang ulit. I love that bike.
So going back to quality, Jolly, let's use Motostar as an example because they'll never sponsor us. What's your experience as a mechanic and as an engineer working on Motostar bikes?
I worked on Gino Rufino's POS bike at saka yung kapatid niyang kapwa POS bike ni Mark Nelson, ng parehong Cafe 400. So basic tune-up lang. Yung carburetor na ginagamit nila is fucking abysmal.
Uy, language!
Tapos, binuksan ko yung oil filter. Man, yung oil filter na ginagamit nila, as in, mas pino pa yung screen dito sa bintana ko. Tapos may mga rebaba yung oil filter, may mga metal filing. So parang, what the heck? So, napansin ko, sakto pala yung oil filter na pareho sa sa SD16 na Yamaha. So, nagpalit na ako ng paper na filter. Tapos nagkabit ako ng bagong oil. Tapos yung kay Mark Nelson, pinalitan ko ng bagong carb. Yung bike ni Mark Nelson really flies after that. As in, ang tulin niya. As in, nakakatawa. Tapos yung kay Gino, hanggang ngayon naman, tumatakbo pa naman din. So, kahit sabihin mong may onting lapses sa quality yung bike na medyo yung fit and finish ng parts, hindi A+, it works. At saka for 120,000 for a 400cc bike, parang anong...
You can't go wrong.
Oo, parang hindi na ako aangal.
Kaya may
yung CPI
magandang
ko,
ano.
15,000 pesos for that bike. You can't go wrong.
May, may
magandang
tanong ako kay Jolly.
Oh, wait, go ahead, Dino.
May tanong ako kay Jolly. I guess I guess Jolly really has the most mechanical and engineering experience, and basically he's the authority. So diba, is kinakwento ni Jolly certain quality issues with that bike. So can you say that you've never encountered a European bike with similar quality issues? Porket
Ito
Europe, good
um,
quality ba?
Hindi. Dokting yan. Ako sabihin ko, BMW pa lang, di ba? Ang daming recalls.
Exactly.
Di ba? Pero kasi, yung nga, kagandahan din ng branded, si BMW, kapag may alam silang parang, whoops, we messed up, may recall. Whereas si Motorstar, bahala kayo sa buhay nyo.
Okay, so that again, service and quality. I remember going on a ride with the Hombres, and we were in Katiklan. And you remember, Dino, the ring antenna thing with the BMW GSs back in the day?
Yes.
Bumigay
Tumiri
yan
ka?
next to like a freaking NPA camp. Anyway, that's a totally different story. But what BMW did was they sent Nestor to freaking Katiklan to rescue the bike and ride it back. That's freaking service.
Okay.
Hindi, pero kasi
Right.
iba, kasama nyo si Karandi.
So,
Kaya may butt.
baka ma-red tag pa tayo ng gobyerno dito. Oh, magmura ka na lang. Huwag ka na magano.
Guys, may magandang comment dito eh. Sabi ni Nong BJ. Some China bikes are good naman. I know some people, they own China bikes. Usually, if you take care of them well, it will last. So, ano
Yun.
tingin nyo?
Exactly.
Di ba?
At saka,
Depende
like,
rin eh.
like yung Cafe 400, madaming flaws. Pero since that thing is so simple, kung alam mo yung ginagawa mo, you can circumvent those problems eh. Yun nga lang, given na alam mo yung ginagawa mo. Which is parang bumalik ka lang dati sa 1980s na dapat yung mga motorsiklo may certain aptitude ka on working with engines. Diba? Ngayon kasi yung mga bikes sa sobrang high-tech na they're basically maintenance-free. They're tinker-proof, diba? Whereas yung ito nga, yung China, may onting caveats, pero like, if you get a popular bike, like something like the Rusi Classic 200 or yung Motorstar Cafe 400, na may community, na well-documented yung mga problems, goods ka na dun.
Pero, Jolly, isn't that bike specific rather than nationality specific? Like, ganyan din naman yung there are just certain kinds of bikes that are like that. Like yung Royal Enfield, yung 500 ng Royal Enfield, ganyan din eh.
Yeah.
Parang or the Yamaha SR400, ganyan din. Parang you kinda
Kailangan mo ng...
that's part of the ownership experience.
Oo, may papaamuhin mo eh. Oo.
So it's not
You know what?
Unfortunately, in this case, I think that it is a national issue and it's one that China is well aware of and they're trying to improve it. It's this whole quality control debacle is a national issue for them. And they know and I think that they're working hard to improve that.
I agree.
Yeah, tsaka,
I agree.
Oh, kita naman din sa mga bagong bikes. Like, yung sila CF Moto, si Benelli, di ba? Kahit sabihin mong Chinese manufactured, maganda yung track record naman nila.
Yeah.
All right. Now, finally, what makes a brand? Technology.
Yung...
Engineering.
A lot of the Chinese bikes that we're talking about are bikes that use technology and engines that are 10, 15 years old, right? So obviously, they're reliable. They work.
Subok na.
Subok na. Surplus parts are there. But one thing that differentiates global brands is really investing in new technology, in traction control, in
Sila yung ano eh.
ABS,
Sila yung
in
parang, sila yung bleeding edge pagdating sa
And-
technology.
and it goes to pedigree as well, because a lot of the global brands have racing heritage and a current racing team where they pull a lot of this technology from, where they learn, where they do R&D. I think, except for a brand like CF Moto, who is working with like KTM, where they're learning about these new technologies and they're integrating it into their bikes, majority of the Chinese brands are really relying on just old tech.
Not necessarily. They also outsource. Like, for example, Bosch has Jolly
ABS.
Bosch. There's Bosch in India, right?
Mm.
And
Yung mga
Brembo,
ibang
Yeah,
kind of
India
bikes,
Brembo
oo.
has Brembo has
In-
Vibre in India.
Vibre.
Ano yan eh?
Yeah, and China from them.
Yun yung mga ano,
So, they
equipments. Kumbaga, may mga additional equipments na pwede mo incorporate sa isang bike. But in terms of sa mga industry leaders or yung mga gumagawa talaga ng new technology, sila yung nagsiset ng standard.
Yon.
Di ba? Tapos, kung sino yung mga brands na nagpupush ng limits on how to invent a new technology or let's say kasi ang mga major brands, they can just continue to refine ng engine up until makuha nila yung perfect engine for that particular type of segment, like say sport bike or adventure, di ba? So I think in terms of yun nga, it is the defining point na in terms of technology. And
Interestingly, point out ko lang, nagkaroon ng may mga conflict din dyan between technology and heritage. Kasi like kunwari si Royal Enfield,
Harley with that
They
Porsche
can-
designed
they can-
engine.
ayun, di ba, nag-flop. Tapos, Royal Enfield, parang, can you imagine kung ang RE gumawa ng inline 4 na sports bike? Or yung nangyari sa BMW noong 1980s, di ba? Since, yung nagkaroon ng Japanese bike renaissance, yung Boxer, no, obsolete. So, napuwersa silang gumawa ng inline 4, which is yung K series.
Or a water-cooled GS.
Discontinued na yung K series.
A water-cooled Boxer.
Yun.
That's, diba? Parang I remember Dino.
The fact that BMW makes the F series and the G series na may parallel twin at saka single cylinder, it means na they're trying to compete doon sa parang lower end segment. Parang yung high end doon China, yun yung low end namin. Tapos doon sila nagtatagpo. May sense ba yun?
I really
Grabe.
don't see China.
grabe naman.
I don't see China making an effort to compete. They know that they don't have a chance to compete with all that. They enjoy their place in the world. It's successful, just making affordable bikes. I think the innovation really is going to be in the electric segment.
Yon. I
Sa
agree
tingin ko,
100%.
sa tingin ko malupit ang magiging future ng electric kasi I think give it a decade, they'll start to phase out na ang mga ICE sa tingin ko.
No, sooner, dude. Range Rover is saying 2025 they won't be making any more combustion engines. And going back to the stats we were saying earlier, China sells like 15 million combustion motorcycles in China, but they sell 10 million electric motorcycles in China. 10 million. So can you imagine the advantage they have when it comes to electric technology, when it comes to battery technology?
Yeah.
The next global brands are going to be Chinese electric vehicle brands. And again, going back to the CF Moto showroom, I think that's the showroom of the future, wherein you have electric vehicles on the ground floor. You have all sorts of different types of electric vehicles on the ground floor. You have the CF Moto combustion bikes, and then you have the premium MV Agustas there. All bike brands will be moving towards that kind of showroom.
Have you noticed how many riders in Europe are on China bikes, both internal combustion and electric now? These are white European people who know that these are made in China and they're enjoying them.
Yep. And
Ano diba?
let's
Sa Europe,
pull
team
up,
ko,
ano,
ang number one.
Jolly, let's pull up what Gino
Yo.
said.
Yung Iba's favorite word today is pedally. Anyway.
It's and we still can't register electric bikes here. And that's the sad fact.
Wala pa nga tayong plaka eh. E-bikes
we
pa
can't
kaya.
we can't register normal bikes here.
But I was just, it's super funny. Just like 30 minutes ago, before I even knew that you guys were doing like a China bike podcast, I was talking to someone about this, about how promising and awesome Chinese electric vehicles are. But I noticed something, and everyone already knows that battery technology is the biggest hurdle. They're so damn heavy. They're just so damn heavy. China,
At saka yung charging, medyo hindi pa masyadong developed yung charging. Mabagal pa.
Dude, it's
range.
So I find it funny how all of the big brands, especially Honda, are waiting. They're like waiting until the technology gets better before they roll out in earnest. But China ain't waiting. Batteries are heavy, charging slow, whatever. We want to be first. So, boom. But once the technology starts improving, you're going to see all of the big brands arguably put out electric motorcycles that are going to be way better than China electric motorcycles, but they'll be so expensive. They're going to be so expensive.
Ang isa pang example na naisip ko sa e-bikes yung sa yung US brand, yung Zero Motorcycles. They were making dirt bikes na mga purely electric. Alam ko, X Games ba yun? Basta there's like an enduro contest tournament sa US na every year na sikat. Sumali Zero Motorcycles. So kalaban nila mga two-stroke na bikes. They won first place. Then the next year, binago yung rules, bawal na ang e-bike. So when it comes to the performance margin, medyo mahirap i-compare ang electric bike sa sa
That's
combustion
completely
engine.
unfair. Hindi mo pwedeng kumpara yung Apple.
Actually,
nagkaroon kasi. Sige, go.
I'm someone must be more knowledgeable about this. Is China actually a leader in battery research and development, or are they just a leader in like supply chain management? Kaya they can manufacture batteries. They can manufacture a lot of batteries very, very cheaply. I'm just wondering.
Because of the sheer scale of their market, they are leaders in battery technology. They're leaders because of the sheer number of people using the bike.
I mean, not necessarily the number of people using, but just
they've invested heavily on battery technology.
In improving and designing and all that. Okay.
So,
I mean,
basically,
again, Baidu
mabenta kasi like may 10 million nga naman silang binibenta a year. So, madami silang nabebenta. So, they have like the
lots of
funds
income para
to do research and development. Okay. That's interesting.
Okay, so we're running a little long again. I love this format. Thank you, Maki, Jenna, Dino, and Direct Bing for joining us. Any last words? Any thoughts before we wrap up? Maki, since you have the adorable baby next to you.
Well, I think sa tingin ko, on my final note siguro, let's give the Chinese bikes a chance in this market. Kasi right now our market is still growing, and sa current hindi pa tayo nasa-saturate yung market in terms of motorcycle. So with the entry of Chinese brands, they're able to provide nga yung new models or new affordable models that they can also enjoy despite of the pricing or the segment promise or yung value that they offer. Kasi di ba ngayon, dati ang motorcycling is just only a mode of transport, but right now it's starting to become a lifestyle vehicle.
Yun.
So parang okay lang naman. Parang mas maganda, mas maganda, and mas marami nagmo-motor. For me, mas nababawasan yung nagkokotse, and mas madali na tayong pag-ride na mas maluwag na kalsada. Yun yung sa akin. Parang the more the merrier.
Agree.
Right?
What about ladies? Jenna?
Can I make cuento about cars? And I think that you might find parallels with it to this whole China bike issue.
Sure.
So I told you that I was editing this academic paper about, and the topic of the paper was, it was like a Chinese student doing research on the possibility of developing quote unquote CDM, Chinese domestic market, and how they can be as renowned as JDM. And they were saying the disadvantages were that they're way behind decades in the industrialization thing, the fact that they're less globalized because Japan had so much partnership with the West, and Japan spread JDM to the neighbors like Taiwan. They also said that Taiwan was way ahead in their custom scene because of its partnerships with Japan and the OEM parts manufacturing thing. They were talking about how USDM, like that whole culture is so distinct, how JDM is so distinct, how the Euro flavor is so distinct because of all of these geopolitical and cultural factors. And they were like, how do we make CDM? And his conclusion was, number one, you need a people's vehicle, something that so many people own, ride, and have an emotional connection to. Number two, you need performance heritage, competitions, but in the car world, they already are doing that with Geely. And then he said that at the end of the day, people of China are going to need to fall in love with motoring, not as just a regular form of transportation, but to form communities around it. And he was saying that there are internet apps that are specifically geared, they're like mini Facebooks for car culture. And he said that these young Chinese kids are starting to join these groups, they're starting to hold meets, they're starting to customize their cars. And he said that when that generation grows up to become the marketing directors, the designers, the engineers of the next generation of cars, you're going to start seeing what makes China, China. And if we're going to talk about design, you have to think about what do Chinese people like. And in China, there's like a disconnect between the people who find being ostentatious not unbecoming. They think that being ostentatious is unbecoming, but there are the people who like being ostentatious. I think that the look of CDM is going to be a mix between the two that is kind of French. You guys know how French design stuff?
Mm-hmm.
Like, there's a bit of extra that some people argue is over designing. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely.
Like, their design's kind of weird. They have like a little bit of extra.
Oy, si Bak nakabalik na.
Nakahabol ka. All right, Jenna, sorry.
No, it's cool. Hi, Buck. I think the
Hi,
future.
wala ka pa rin video. Mysterious
I think the
effect naman
future
to.
of Chinese bikes. Maybe I don't predict it. Maybe this is what I want them to do. I want them to really focus on the futurism thing. melding that fancy European-inspired, fancy Luxo design with a little bit of cyberpunk. You can see that with the electric vehicles, actually.
Yep, agree.
Yeah,
100%.
they sell those electric vehicles in cell phone stores in China.
Have you been? When was the last time you went to China, Jenna?
I've never been to mainland. I've only been to Hong Kong.
I go to mainland. I used to go to mainland quite a bit. And every time I go there, like in like maybe once every 6 months, you can see how much they've evolved. They are like 5 years into our future. You know what I mean? Compared to Europe, the United States, it is very cyberpunk. And if they can bring that design ethic to what they're making, and it's getting there, and they embrace that. Yeah, you've got a winner.
I do think that despite all of the partnerships that they're having with other manufacturers, all those joint ventures, I think if they really want to like exponentially advance, they need to be open more. For example, you know Kimco. You know there's a new Kimco that has
The
like
F9.
a GPS, right?
Yeah, the Nodo. The Nodo.
The Nodo.
Nodo. Yeah.
I forgot. But imagine if they humbly accepted the help of Google. Imagine if they did that.
They're not allowed to though.
I know, but see, like
Trade sanctions, US. But yeah, I see what you're going to. I mean, if you could build Android into a motorcycle, damn, that would be cool. Like I'm a geek, and that my heart is beating extra fast. All right, Dino. Sorry, Jenna.
No, wala lang. I have a lot of. I'm very, very hopeful with China opening up and the new generation being more open and globalized and innovative. Like we have a lot of promise, man. I see it.
And let's do an e-bike episode next. All right, Dino.
Parang wala nag-react ah.
Wala. We like gas.
Anyway, since you asked, ako I'm torn. I'm actually torn when it comes to Chinese bikes. You know, like Maki.
Like
I
Natalie Imbruglia.
Exactly. 90s reference. You know, like I guess like Maki and Jenna, I hope that made in China or Chinese motorcycle eventually, or Chinese brand eventually stands for something the way Japanese brand or Korean brand, di ba? Parang dati kung made in Japan or made in Korea, parang chippy pa yan, di ba? But now they stand for something. They stand for quality and engineering and whatever. So for the sake of the consumer, I hope that happens to Chinese brands or Chinese bikes. But at the same time, for me personally, I have difficulty dissociating Chinese manufacturers from the Chinese government. But that's my thing. So, that's just me.
Yep. That and that's a good point. A lot of the support and advantages that go into these Chinese manufacturers come from the government, right?
Yep.
And are you cool with what it stands for?
Yeah.
Are you
like,
cool with diba?
Like,
so that's definitely something.
Yeah. Is there even a single Chinese company that is purely a private enterprise that has nothing to do with the Chinese state? So, yan yung ano ko. So
yeah. All right, we're gonna get censored in China for sure. Thanks, Dino.
But that's just my opinion. The opinion of the guest Herain is not necessarily shared by Tunay. Disclaimer.
Direct Bing.
Yeah, China to me, when you say heritage, you see pedigree. You have to start somewhere. It happened to Ducati, BMW, all these guys. So I think China's doing it the right way since they opened up globally. Kasi you were saying 16 million, they drop in the bucket lang yung international market eh. But if you really think about it, they are already having an identity. They are having a personality. And actually, I have a meeting in Navotas on Tuesday. Ngayon, isisingit ko pumunta sa CF Moto. Because of you, Iba. I really want to see that. I've been invited a couple of times by Camille to check out MV Agusta and CF Moto and stuff like that. Now I will look at it. If you really think about the question about earlier that do they have the technology? Honestly, they have it. Because all the Western market, they bring the technology there and they make it. So I'm sure meron na lumulusot yung technology somewhere there na alam na nila yun. Hindi lang, pumirma lang ng NDA yun eh, kaya hindi pa nila ma-full blast yun eh. Pero they know the technology. Like, all our phones, dun galing yan eh. Diba? Biro, I don't want to do anything with China. O tapos mo na yung iPhone mo dahil half of the components your iPhone. So the technology is there.
And then Jenna can support the fact that our most of us here are on Globe, so most of our signals go through Chinese towers, right, Jenna?
There you go. I mean, yeah. They will open up. They play their cards right, and they're playing it right. They take advantage of their government, how they can actually develop so many things. What we're seeing right now in media, dude, that's just like 5%. I'm sure they have something really deep in their tech that we just don't know about. So yeah,
yep.
Support it, and hopefully it will do good, not only for us but the whole world. But that's a totally different topic. So yeah, Dino would attest to that. That Chinese mentality will be a totally different thing. But again, motorcycles, I welcome it. Pero sana mabawasan lang yung kamote natin sa kalye. Yun lang yung akin. The point is you're giving them a 400cc and 600cc. Pare, what can I do with it?
That's another thing.
Isa pang episode yun.
Ibang topic yan.
All right, and then finally, let's acknowledge the presence of Bak Pogi. Woo! Humabol.
Ganda ng kulay mo, Bak.
Oo nga eh. Tan na tan. So Bak it just came from a 4-day adventure on a Chinese bike. I don't know what you're allowed to share. It's a brand that's coming in soon. But yeah, take us out, Bak.
Available on May.
So wala ka pang paribalita.
Maglalabas na lang ako ng video. Oo,
Sige.
maglalabas na lang ako ng video through Tunay na rider page.
Sinusubay
Kumusta yung ride? Kumusta yung ride, Bak? Kumusta yung ride?
Okay naman. Chinese bike yung ginamit ko.
Oo nga.
1,000 kilometers plus. So, nag-survive naman.
And it's a sub 400cc bike, right?
Yeah.
And medyo sub-sub.
Cafe racer.
Ay, magugustuhan ni Jenna yan.
Oh, nakita na ni Jenna yan. Preview ko na sa kanya eh.
Yeah, he was
Chrono Dream.
Anyway, all right. So yeah, that wraps it up for this week's show. Thank you guys for hopping in. Again, this is an experiment. We're trying out, leaving the door open for you guys to contribute and to connect. Thank you to our sponsors, May Código Ako, our partners, Turatech, Motul, Moto World, of course, Otterbox, and Forged. Thank you so much, Forged, for helping us out. And yeah, Bianca, can you show the other Tunay na rider? Yon.
Thank you, Bianca.
Okay. Oh, yon. So if you need anything delivered, we are going to give you a discount on Mr. Speedy. All you need to do is type in Speedy na Rider. as your
si
promo
Ibe yung,
code.
si Ibe yung silhouette ng dirt bike.
Ang taba, oh! Yung graphic designer namin, galit sa akin eh.
Baka
And
naman si Santa Claus yan, nagde-deliver ng ng mga regalo.
Pwede
see you
naman
guys
yan.
next week. Guys, stay in on the call for the after party. All right. Bye.
Tugs, tugs.